but better.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to C Results on IBN TV, as well as the C Results Facebook page and the IBN TV Facebook page. I am your math teacher, Sir Ijaz, and today we're going to be continuing with the maths that we started on Monday. All right, we were kind of trying to fast track a bit through the remaining section 1 type questions, particularly in number, that is. Because as you know, that section or that strand of mathematics has the most questions in section 1 as well as section 2. We've already embarked on section 2 and some of the other strands, so we're just going to get that out of the way now. And you know, as we continue into the future with our current standard 4 students who will be in standard 5 next academic year, and hopefully when we have more standard 4 students join us, we'll revisit some of those topics that we had to fast track a little bit, because it's really crunch time right now for our standard 5 students who are about to write SEA in less than a month's time. So we have a couple of questions to finish again before we get back into, or before we progress, into the measurement section 2 type questions. And we began looking at improper fractions as well as mixed numbers in order to tackle this question here. So, you know, I'm going to remind you all of the numbers, and I'm just going to do a short recap of what we discussed before we left off on Monday. All right? So, again, those numbers will be provided for you, and so you can get ready to call us. I hope you had an opportunity to read the question, and I'm just going to recap, you know, the little content that we did, and we also did some practice with it, which we won't repeat today, but I'll just, you know, recap the subject matter. All right, so Shania cut 7 pizzas into 8s. She shared 30 slices, right? The fraction that remained as a mixed number. And if you would, you know, with us on Monday, you'd realize that several students made some mistakes when they were converting, be it from mixed number to improper fraction or improper fraction to mixed number. It's something, you know, that requires a little bit of practice, and it's easy to mess up if you don't take your time. Okay, so you have to, you know, instill that habit in you of trying to, you know, focus while you're doing these operations. So the first thing that we had to, you know, remind you of was that a proper fraction is a fraction that is less than, it represents less than a whole, and the numerator is less than the denominator. Examples are half, 2/3, and 3/5, and all of us should be very comfortable with the proper fractions. And again, you can look back to our previous videos on fractions that are available on our YouTube channel, see results, all right? And also under the videos tab on the Facebook page. And then, we learned that an improper fraction, it represents more than a whole, and that the numerator is larger than the denominator. And you can see we have some examples there again: 7/3, 11/2, 9/4, 13/8. All right, so these are improper fractions because the numerator is larger than the denominator, and these represent more than a whole. So there's another way that we can state these improper fractions, and that is called a mixed number, all right? And it consists of a whole number and a proper fraction, all right? So it's a whole number and a proper fraction, and as we were just reminded, a proper fraction is one where the numerator is less than the denominator, and it represents less than a whole, all right? So the mixed number comprises of one whole number and a proper fraction, and we can convert between improper fractions and mixed numbers, and we can also make mixed numbers into improper fractions, and we gave you all the steps, all right? So in order to convert from an improper fraction, we had to divide the numerator by the denominator and put the remainder over the denominator. Again, if you want this, explain more in detail, at a slower pace as well, Monday's episode is available on YouTube, and it is there on the Facebook channel, so you can, use that as well for, a bit slower paced explanation, as well as the practice exercise which followed, where we had callers actually help us to do these conversions, all right? So here we see we have the number 11/12. We divided the numerator, which was 11, by 2, and we got 5, which is our whole number, and we have a remainder of 1, because 2 can go into 11 5 times with a remainder of 1, and we put that remainder over our denominator, right? And there's also that second example there. And when we have to convert from a mixed number to an improper fraction, we multiply the whole number by the denominator, we add the numerator to the product, all right, and put the total over the denominator. And as you can see here, we have some examples again. We have 2 2/3. We multiply the whole number by the denominator. 2 3s give us 6. We add the product, which is 6, to our numerator of 2, and we get 8. And we put it all over the denominator. And we have a second example there. All of those examples are available on Monday's episode, and you can have a look at that. And we then went on to give you some mixed numbers, some improper fractions, and our callers, they helped us to convert those, and all of those can be used as a template for you in your revision, in addition to what you'll find in whatever textbook you are using in school, whatever workbooks, whatever practice booklets that you are using, all right? You can definitely find more questions on this topic, and we have one now. We're coming back to the question that took us down this path to begin with, all right? So here is our question again. So Shania cut 7 pizzas into 8s, right? She shared 30 slices. Write the fraction that remained as a mixed number. So do I have a caller on the line to help me? Good afternoon, caller.
Hello, good day.
Welcome to See Results. Hi, good day.
Hello, good day.
Hello, good day. And who am I speaking with?
Kelly Spencer.
Welcome, Kaylee. So, Kaylee, give me your thoughts for this question here right now.
Okay. So, working on that question.
Yes.
So, we want to write the remaining fraction as a mixed number.
Yes.
So, we say 7 times 8 to find out all the slices and all.
Right.
And then you say 56.
Yes.
Say 56. 56 take away 30.
Mm-hmm.
You get 26.
Right.
26 over 56.
All right. Why are you putting it over 56?
Huh?
Why would you put it over 56? I'm interested to know.
Because 56 is the whole amount of slices.
All right, but these are actually what we are doing here, right? These are 56 eighths, right? And
Okay.
these are 38ths, because the slices represent each slice represents 1/8 of a pizza, all right?
Okay.
So when we subtract the 30 from the 56, we get 26, and we have to put that 26 over 8, all right? Because we are left with 26/8.
Okay.
If you put 26 over 56, right, just to demonstrate something to you here, and hopefully you'll remember this. If I put 26 over 56, is that a proper or an improper fraction?
26 over 56
Yeah.
is a proper fraction.
Right, because the numerator is smaller than the denominator, right?
Yeah.
So that's a clue there. We would not be able to convert that to a mixed number, because in order to get a mixed number, we have to have what kind of fraction?
An improper fraction.
Exactly. All right, so no problems there. That's a little error, and we're happy to clear it up for you. So what about 26 over 8 now? How would we convert that to a mixed number?
Okay, you divide 8 into 26,
Yes.
and you will get 3 with a remainder of 2.
3 with a remainder of?
2.
All right.
But the 2 8s could also be reduced.
So what?
2 1/4.
Exactly. So
So
what
it'll
is
be 3
our?
1/4.
Right. Thank you very much, Kaylee, for your help and for remaining with us, right? All right, guys. So if you saw there, you know, a potential mistake that could be made, all right, which is very understandable. You know, the purpose of these questions is to try and trick you, right? Well, not really, but to try and test your knowledge and your understanding. But in trying to do that, they might word the question sneakily or put it in a way where you really have to apply your critical thought, all right? So, yes, we end up with 56 slices in total, all right? But those slices, each of those slices represent 1/8, all right? So we have 56/8 when we cut the 7 slices into 30, when we cut the 7 pizzas into slices of 8, all right? We share out or we distribute 30 of those slices. So what's really happening here now is we have a subtraction problem in fractions. Again, something that we'll have to delve more into for our standard 4 students in the future, right? Hopefully, a lot of our standard 5s would get this, all right? And, you know, of course, even if they knew this, they could still make the mistake that Kaylee made. But that's fine, all right? That's why we are here, to help you to learn what's up, right? So we have fractions. When we're adding or subtracting fractions that have the same denominator, we don't have to do anything fancy. We don't have to find any LCM. We don't have to convert them into equivalent fractions or anything like that. We can simply subtract our numerators, all right, once the denominator is the same. So we have 56 slices, which is really 56/8, right? We have given away 30 or shared 30 slices, which are 38. So we subtract those numerators, and we get the 26/8, which is an improper fraction. And what I was trying to tell Kaylee there is that if she had proceeded with the 26/56, you'd realize that that is not an improper fraction. So we can't state that as a mixed number as the question is requiring. So that's a little red flag there, okay? And as we say, when we are converting from an improper fraction to a mixed number, we divide the numerator. We divide our numerator by the denominator, right? So 8 into 26, 3, right? 8 3s are 24, and we have a remainder of 2, and we put the remainder over the denominator, which is 8, all right? And as Kaylee said, and as we've done in previous videos, again, we're referencing the YouTube channel that you can go look at, where we covered equivalent fractions, reducing fractions, fractions in their lowest terms, and comparing fractions as well, right? Greater than, less than, equal to, right? So we see here that we have 2 and 8, which both have a common factor of 2. So we can divide 2 by 2 as well as 8 by 2, and we'll get 3 1/4 as our final answer. So thank you, Kaylee. And all of that explanation is to make sure that everyone understands it, all right? Remember, yes, we are trying to press on, we are trying to get as much work done as possible, but our approach here is to make learning and to make preparation for this exam, accessible to everybody, all right? The very fast learners, the slow learners, the ones in between, all right? Because you can always rewatch the videos and you can skip past the parts that you know already. The ones who are weaker can rewatch it as many times as they want, but we have to make sure that our explanation is there and you are not left to try and figure it out on your own, right? So that is good also, figuring out stuff on your own, but we have to give you that helping hand first, all right? So we have another question here that deals with the concept of mixed numbers, but it pertains to the number line. So I'm wondering who out there can assist me with this. And I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Hi,
Hi, good afternoon. Who am I speaking with?
Ariana.
Welcome, Ariana. So, Ariana, we have to draw an arrow that points to 2 3/5 on the number line. Can you help me with that? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so what I know what to do is 2 will go to 3, which is the whole number, right?
Which is the whole number?
2
Right,
on the
yes.
left hand,
Yeah,
then 3.
right. So these are both of our whole numbers, yes.
So if you count the arrows or the lines in between the line, you will get 9.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 3/5 will be let me just look at it.
All right. So we have 9 lines, right?
Yeah.
But it's broken up into how many segments?
10.
10, right? So this whole here is broken up into 10 equal parts, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to figure out now, what does that mean in terms of 3 on 5? So go ahead and think about it a little bit.
Okay. I think it'll be 6 lines.
All right, so here's what. You are on the right track. Now, if you count here, yes, you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right?
Yeah.
But then to complete our next whole number, we have to go one more here to 3, which is actually 10, all right?
Yeah.
So, and if you look at it, not by the individual graduations, but if you look at the segments, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, think about it. This line is actually divided into 10 parts, all right?
Yeah.
So we are looking for a fraction that has a denominator of 10,
10.
right? And we have a fraction with a denominator of
10.
5, the original one, right?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to get 5 to become 10?
Multiply by 2.
Right, and if I multiply by 2 underneath, what do I have to do on top?
Multiply the same number on top.
Right, and that's how you got the
6 10.
6, right? 6 over 10. And I'll show you why it's 6 over 10 and not 6 over 9, right? But
Okay.
well done. Thank you for your assistance.
Welcome.
All right, so viewers out there. Right, but we didn't do the last part, which is to draw the arrow. All right, but we'll do that now. So we have here a line broken up into 10 equal segments, all right? And if you count, yes, if you count those graduations in between 2 and 3, you're going to get 9, all right? But if, as you can see here in the green, it's actually broken up into 10 pieces, all right? So this first line here, or gradation, is 2 1/10, then we have, well, sorry, 2 tenths, not 2 and 1 tenths, right? 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths, and if we went one more, we would have 10 tenths, which is where that 3 is there in the whole numbers, all right? So after 2 and 9 tenths is 2 and 10 tenths, which is actually a whole, or 1, all right? So 2 and 10 tenths gives us 3, all right? So that is where that little bit of confusion there occurs. This 3, if we are following from line to line of the tenths or the 1/10 segments, that 3 actually represents the completion of the 10th tenth, all right? So I know that that's a little mouthful, but I hope you understand what I'm saying there, all right? So if we have 2 and 3/5, we learned previously that to convert to equivalent fractions, we have to multiply whatever we multiply our numerator by, we must also multiply whatever we multiply our denominator by, we must also multiply the numerator by, all right? So we know that we have a line here that is broken up into tenths, all right? And we have the fraction expressed in terms of fifths. So we have to multiply 5 by 2 in order to get that 10. And likewise, we will multiply the numerator by 2, which gives us 6/10. And we have to just count until we get to the 6th stroke, all right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is where we would have drawn the arrow as the question requested, all right? All right, so yes, a little bit of confusion there on Ariana's behalf with regards to whether it's 6/9 or 6/10. Yes, we are seeing 9 lines, but those 9 lines are breaking it up into 10 pieces, all right? 10 equal parts, which is what a fraction is. So that arrow will be drawn at the 6th marker in between 2 and 3 for the reasons we just gave, all right? So rewatch that one as many times as you need to. I know it can be a little bit confusing at times, but just understand the difference there, right, between the 9 lines and the 10 segments, okay? So that is our answer, and of course, just understanding that we have 10 pieces, 10 equal parts would lead you on to converting from 3/5 to some fraction over 10, and you look for that particular number stroke in between the 2 and the 3. So we're moving on now. All right, guys, we have here a question and we require your assistance. So a bouquet has 2 dozen flowers, of which 6 are roses. What decimal fraction of the bouquet is roses? So good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Hello?
Hello, good day, and who am I speaking with?
Dennis Jones.
Welcome, Dennis. So, Dennis, can you tell me what 6 roses are in a dozen or 2 dozen flowers, a bouquet of 2 dozen flowers? You want to get the decimal fraction for that. How would you do that?
So the total is 24
Right.
flowers
Yeah.
and 6 are roses.
Right.
So
So far, so good. So you have a total of 24 and 6 are roses. We're looking for a decimal fraction, right? But let's start with a common fraction. So if the total is 24, right, and 6 are roses, where does that 6 go?
it is reduced.
Right, so the 6 is our what in the fraction?
Numerator.
Our numerator, right? And what can 6 over 24 be reduced to?
1/4.
1/4. And without having to do any further working, can you tell me what is a quarter as a decimal? Do you know?
0.5.
All right,
25.
0.25, right? And remember, this is something that we want you to know, right? We want you to know what is a quarter, a half, 3/4. It's even useful to know how much is 1/8, all right?
Yes, sir.
So a quarter is 0.25. Think of a quarter, you think of 25 cents or 0.25, all right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
all right, thank you so much for your help, Dennis. So basically, guys, the key here to know in the question is that a dozen is equal to 12. If you didn't know that, well, you have been in some serious problems here, all right? So yes, so we have 2 dozens, which is 24. 6 of those roses are, in fact, 6 of those flowers in the bouquet are, in fact, roses. So we have 6 on 24, all right? We can reduce the highest common factor of 6 and 24 is the number 6, all right? 6 can go into 6 one time, and it can go into 24 4 times. So we have the fraction, the common fraction of a quarter, and you don't have to spend any time working out anything there, all right? A quarter is 0.25. Please learn that off. Don't ever forget it. It will come in handy for the rest of your life as a person and as a student, all right? So thank you so much for your help, Dennis. And here we have another question that tests your knowledge of, you know, the equivalent to some common fractions, all right? So we want to know what decimal fraction of the figure above is not shaded, all right? So if you know the answer, feel free to give us a call and to give us your assistance with this particular question. Again, the numbers are there on the screen for you, and we'd like to know what decimal fraction of the figure above is not shaded. So I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller.
Hello?
Hi, good day. Who am I speaking with?
Aidan.
Welcome, Aidan or Jaden?
Aidan.
Aidan, welcome, Aidan. So, Aidan, what decimal fraction of this figure is not shaded? What are your thoughts?
Explain it.
Yeah, explain it, yeah.
Okay, so the entire figure is 16 blocks.
Right.
So if I count the ones that are not shaded,
Yeah.
there are 8. So 8 over 16, which is equal to 1/2.
Yes.
And that is equal to 0.5.
Excellent work, Aidan. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
All right, so Aidan has a proud mommy or auntie or somebody there with him, all right? Okay, so we have here a figure, and as Aidan correctly said, there are 16 blocks in this figure, all right? You can count them up there, all right? And we have to see which of the figure is not shaded, what decimal fraction is not shaded. So we start with our regular common fraction, all right? So the answer for shaded and not shaded in this question, as you can tell, would be the same, all right? We put the amount not shaded over the total, which is 16. And again, you know, this calls back to our previous lessons on reducing fractions and expressing fractions in their lowest terms. And 8/16 is equal to 1/2. And as we know, 1/2 is equal to 0.5. All right, so thank you, Aidan, for your help. And now we move on to a topic that we also looked at, not in its totality, but again, we are kind of fast tracking here now for you guys that have your SEA exam hurtling towards you. So here we have a question where Mr. Ishan bought a watch at a sale. The watch costs $300 and a 30% discount is offered. We want to know how much did Mr. Ishan pay for the watch. So if you know the answer to this question or how to answer the question at least, give us a call. And I'm seeing I have a caller. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results.
Hello?
Hi, good day. Who am I speaking with?
Hi,
Hi, good day, and who am I speaking with?
Caleb Matt.
Hey, welcome, Caleb. So, Caleb, what are your thoughts for this question?
They said the total of the watch was $300, and
Yes.
he got a 50% discount. So what I did was 50 over 100 multiplied by 300 over 1.
How much over 100?
50 over 100
Right.
multiplied by 300 over 1.
And how much is that?
90.
All right, so that is equal to 90. But is that how much Ishan pays for the watch?
No. The total will be equal to 300 minus 90, and you'll get $210.
Right, $300 minus 90, and that gives us
310.
210. All right, excellent. So thank you so much, Caleb, for your assistance. All right, so there are basically two approaches to this question that you could take. The first is this one, all right? We are given a 30% discount. So we find 30% of the cost of the watch, which is $300, right? So we have the assumption here that we can multiply fractions. Again, we haven't been able to reach that far in terms of our teaching, all right? But we know we are dealing with people on the cusp of the SCA exam. So again, we can revisit these things in the future, God willing, and explain it in more detail. But this is the situation here. We find the discount of the 300, and we are going to get $90. We subtract that 90 from 300, and we're going to get a price of $210. Another way to look at it would be to find 70% of 300. All right? You're basically getting 30% off of the watch. So therefore, 100%, which is the total, right? Subtract 30%, which is the discount, would give us 70%. All right? And now we have to find 70% of the price, which is 300. And we multiply 70 by 3, and you get to your 210 without having to subtract anything, all right? So that is a alternate approach to doing this question. All right, so we're just about at the halfway mark for mathematics today, and we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back with a lot more questions. So don't go anywhere, and be prepared to call and give us a hand, all right? I'll see you back very shortly.
I'm a cool kid, you're a cool kid, we are cool kids, are you a cool kid? Every day I want it, I need to drink lots of it, full of fruit, vitamin C, give me lots of it. My imagination is growing and so am I. I'm getting big, so give me fruit of cool kids, it's so juicy, so I could touch the sky.
Become a cool kid now by visiting www.fruiticoolkids.com.
Sheikley Show Limited, the Caribbean's largest manufacturers of plain and printed paper bags, leaders in plastic bags, vermicelli, split piece powder, and greaseproof paper, ideal for doubles, french fries, and sandwiches. Supplying stores nationwide. For quality products, trust Sheikley Show Limited, 665-3336.
For the everyday lowest prices on all grocery items, trust Low Cost Supermarket for the widest variety of quality products at low prices. Freshly picked fruits and vegetables, healthy products for your well-being, high-quality meat cuts, and a warm and friendly service. Low Cost Supermarket, Southern Main Road, Cunupia.
Fruta, taste the real Fruta, enjoy the real Fruta, refreshing juice of every day. Whoa, Fruta.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to See Results on IBN TV. And we are here doing some questions on the strand, or within the strand of number, which covers a whole lot of topics, all right, as we get you closer to your SEA exam. We have just one more question to do, and then we'll be moving on again to some Section 2 type questions in the strand of measurement, all right? As we attempt to cover as much content as we possibly can for your benefit. So here, our final question here on our number, all right, has to do with VAT, value added tax, all right, and it is charged at 12.5%, which is the actual value that is charged currently in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, we have to calculate the VAT in dollars that must be added to the price of a bicycle priced $360. So we have to calculate the VAT on an item here, which is a bicycle that is $360. And I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. And who am I speaking with?
Dennis.
Hey, welcome back, Dennis.
Thank you.
So, Dennis, what are your thoughts for this question here?
12.5%.
Yeah.
Is equal to 1/8.
All right.
And the regular price is $360.
All right.
So 1/8 of $360 is $45.
All right. 1/8 of $360 is equal to $45. All right. And is that the answer? Yes. That is the answer because we just have to calculate the VAT, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dennis. All right. So Dennis was about to inadvertently commit an error there, which would be to calculate, the final price, but that is actually not asked in the question, all right? So we have to try to always give our answers, make them precise, make them what the question is looking for. In our last question, we not only had to calculate the discount, we had to calculate the final price after the discount. Here we are just required to calculate the VAT. And as Dennis said, 12.5% is equal to 1/8, all right? What's an easy way to memorize that? 25% is a quarter, right? 25%, which is the same as 25 over 100, is the same as a quarter, right? But even before that, it's equal to a quarter, and it's also equal to 0.25. All right, because if we have 25 and we divide it here by 100, we know that we'll have to move that decimal place twice to the left, and that's how we get 0.25. And if 25% is equal to a quarter, all right, what is 1/2 of 25%? A half of 25% is 12.5%. 12.5 or 12.5 multiplied by 2 will give you 25%. And a half of a quarter is equal to 1/8. All right, so we basically have to multiply 1/8 of 360, which is the same as dividing 360 by 8, and we're going to get an answer of 45. Now, if you didn't know that 12.5% is equal to 1/8, you could also have done it a little bit differently. All right, I'll show you how. But you should really learn that 12.5% is equal to 1/8. Incidentally, it's also equal to 0.125. All right. So we have 12.5%, which is the same as 25 over 2 divided by 100, because as we learned, percent means, you know, out of 100. So we have 25 and over 2, which is the improper fraction for 12.5, divided by 100. So we're dividing by 100, which means we have to multiply by 1 over 100. We flip the fraction there when we're dividing and turn it into a multiplication. Again, this is something we'll hopefully get to come back to in the future. Hoping there that most of my standard 5s out there can follow a little bit. We get 25 over 200, and here our highest common factor between 25 and 200 is 25 itself. 25 can go into 25 once, and it can go into 200 8 times. All right, it can go into 100 4 times, therefore it will go into 200 8 times. And that is how you can derive 1/8 from 12.5% if you didn't know it before offhand, all right? But still try to remember that 12.5% is the same as 1 over 8. And I hope that you know that brought some clarity as to why that is. All right, another way to think of it, as we said, it's half of 25, which is a quarter. So and a half of a quarter is 1/8. And then ultimately we find 1/8 of 360. And that is how we got to $45. So thank you, Dennis, and thank you to everyone who participated with us so far. All right, that's the last section 1 number question we're going to see on this particular stretch here till SEA. All the number questions coming up will be from the second section and maybe the third section. Of course, we are very pressed for time, but I'm sure a lot of learning just took place there because we ran through so many different concepts within number in a very short period of time. And please do rewatch it. You're going to get a quiz on the weekend that will cover all of those questions, similar types of questions that we did on Monday and today. All right, and we're also now going to progress into the measurement questions from section 2. And just be reminded that measurement, you know, has the second most questions on the paper, and in section 2 you can get 4 of those questions as opposed to the 10 in number. And here are some examples of the types of questions you will encounter. All right, the theory for most of these questions, the foundation, the fundamental theory, we already covered it on the program. So now it's more, you know, critical thinking and using your thought and your logic to rationalize these questions, okay? So have a look, have a browse through on our YouTube channel, all of our previous videos, and look for the measurement type questions. So here is one question that tests your actual knowledge of using a ruler. All right, so we have here a pencil in this diagram next to a ruler, and we have to give the length of the pencil in centimeters. So if you think you can answer this question for me, please give us a call. And is it possible for us to zoom in a little bit on the image at the center? Right, we're trying to get the length of the pencil in centimeters. And I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. And who am I speaking with? Hello?
Hi,
Hi, who is on the line?
Ariana.
Hey, welcome, Ariana. So, Ariana, what is the length of this particular pencil in centimeters based on this diagram here?
Well, the pencil starting from 2 centimeters.
Right.
And it ending on 8 and 8.8 centimeters.
Excellent. So it starts at 2 centimeters flat, right?
Yeah.
Which is 2 point how much?
2.0.
Excellent. And it ends at 8.8. Very good. So does that mean the pencil is 8.8 centimeters long?
No.
All right. Well, what does it mean then?
It means, well, it's not starting at the 1 centimeter mark.
Mm-hmm.
So So what I do is I take 1.8 and I minus it from 2.0.
You take 1.8 and you minus it from 2.0.
No, sorry, 8.8.
All right. Yes.
And I minus it from 2.0.
Okay. Now the
And I
correct way
get-
to say that is you minus 2.0 from 8.8, all right?
Yeah.
But I understand what you mean, but please try to get in the habit of saying that. Now go ahead.
Yeah. I got 6.8 centimeters.
Excellent. So the length of this pencil is
6.8 centimeters.
All right. Thank you so much, Ariana. You are very correct.
Thank you.
All right. So it's not 8.8 centimeters long. That would probably be the most common wrong answer that would be given for this question. All right. We start measuring this pencil here at the 2 centimeter mark and not the 0 centimeter mark is what Ariana really meant to say there. All right. So, of course, that is not shown here. We are just shown from 1 centimeter onward on the ruler. But in any case, we are measuring from 2 centimeters to 8.8 if you just count. Remember, centimeter is broken up into 10 millimeters, and we count 1 millimeter at a time. Well, this sort of longer one here in the center is the 5 millimeter mark, and it goes on for 3 more intervals. So that is 8.8, and we subtract 2.0 from that because that's where we start, and we'll get 6.8 centimeters in length. Or alternately, you could just count 1 centimeters, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then from 6 now we count the 8 millimeters there, and we'll also arrive at 6.8 centimeters. So thank you so much, Ariana, for that particular response there. All right. So now we're moving on now into questions on time. All right. We have several questions on time from all different angles of testing this concept. And this particular one is, a hybrid of the time and fractions, which we were just looking at. That's the type of question we're dealing with here. Destiny attends music classes 3 times per week. Each class lasts 1 3/4 hours. How many hours of classes does she attend in a fortnight? Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to see results. Okay, so we seem to have lost that call. Again, do I have another caller? Good afternoon. Okay, so we are waiting a caller, right? So she attends music class 3 times for the week, and each class lasts 1 3/4 hours. How many hours of classes does she attend in a fortnight? All right, so remember, we just did a question a while ago that dealt with 2 dozens of roses, or 2 dozens of flowers in a bouquet, and we had to know what a dozen meant in order to get our denominator. Well, here is a concept in time that we like to use called the fortnight. All right, so I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to see results.
Hi.
Hi, good day, and who am I speaking with? All right. So, a fortnight, what does it mean? And once we know that, we will be able to arrive at our answer. Now, each class lasts for 1 3/4 of an hour, and that happens how many times per week? It happens 3 times per week. So we need to first figure out how many hours Destiny is attending music class in 1 week, and then we can scale that up to figure out how much she does it in a fortnight. So good afternoon, caller. Welcome to see results on IBN TV. Hi, good day. Good day, caller.
Good day.
Hi, and who am I speaking with?
Alexia Jolie.
Welcome to our program. So what are your thoughts on this question here?
Well, I did it many times in class, so it should be easy.
All right. So let's hear it then.
Since we know that a fortnight is 2 weeks,
Yeah.
first we have to find out that how much hours she does in a week.
Right.
So multiply 1 3/4 hours
Mm-hmm.
by
By?
3.
Very good. Now, what do you have to do to this 1 3/4 hours before you multiply it by 3?
Change it. I change it into minutes.
You change it into?
Minutes.
All right, okay. So go ahead. What is 1 3/4 hours in minutes?
105 minutes.
105 minutes. Because that's 60 minutes plus 45 minutes is 105 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All right, no problem. So you are not going with the fractional approach. That is fine. And what do you do next?
1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So 1 hour class lasts 105 minutes. That's where we're at right now.
The total for 1 week will
Yeah.
be 315 minutes.
All right, 315 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
But when I get an answer, since a fortnight is 2 weeks, I have to multiply 315 by 2.
Yes. And how much is that?
630.
630 minutes, right? All right, but our question wants to know how many hours. So how would you convert 630 minutes into hours now?
You have to divide it into 60.
All right. And how much is that?
10 hours, 10.5 hours.
10 what?
10.5 hours.
1025?
10.5.
10.5. Excellent, right? So you divide 630 by 60, and you're going to get 10 and a half or 10.5 hours, right? All right. Thank you so much for your help. You're absolutely right. So the answer is 10.5 hours or 10 and a half hours. All right, we notice here that our question gives us the length of a class in terms of a fraction, right? So it's not incorrect to give it as a decimal, but you know, we could probably stick with the fraction type of response, but 10.5 is definitely not wrong. So that's one way to do it, to convert to minutes and then bring it back into hours. But we already have our hours here expressed as a fraction. All right, and we can convert this to 7/4 as an improper fraction. That's the length in hours, right? 7/4 of an hour is the duration of one class, right? 3 classes for the week. We're going to get 21/4. All right, so we have 21/4, and that's 1 week. We multiply that by 2 because there are 2 weeks in a fortnight, and we will get 42/4. And now we can convert this to a mixed number. 4 will go into 42 10 times with a remainder of 2/4, and that can be reduced to 10.5. And you got away here from having to divide 630 by 60. All right, and converting 1 3/4 hours into minutes, multiplying by 3 and then multiplying by 2 Yes, there are also several steps involved with this process, and both are valid, both are correct, all right? So thank you so much, caller, for your assistance. We now have two separate ways to look at the problem. And we're going to try to fit in one more question before we reach the end of today's program. And we'll continue with this section 2 measurement type questions on Monday, God willing. So here's our final question for today. After Lionel awakes, he takes 20 minutes to eat breakfast, 40 minutes to shower and dress, and 12 minutes to walk to school. School begins at 8:30 a.m. What is the latest time Lionel can awake to arrive 5 minutes before school begins? All right, so yes, it's a lot to digest. So he awakes, he takes 20 minutes to eat, 40 minutes to shower and dress, and 12 minutes to walk to school. What is the latest time Lionel can awake to arrive 5 minutes before school begins? All right, if I have a caller to assist me with this, we will proceed. So think about it. He has to arrive at latest 5 minutes before school begins. So good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV. Hi, good day.
Hello?
Hi, good day. Who am I speaking with?
Hello?
Hi, caller. Who am I speaking with? Good afternoon. Welcome to See Results.
Yeah.
All right, caller, you need to mute the television and listen to us on the phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead. Have you read the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me your thoughts.
Hello?
All right, so we're going to ask to take another caller there if we have one. All right, if not, I think I will actually leave this question for the next session because it's, it's a bit of a procedure here. Okay, I have another caller. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results.
Hi.
Hi, good day. And who am I speaking with?
Alexia Joy.
Okay, welcome to the program. So what are your ideas for this question?
Well, some reason it's looking easy.
All right. So Leonella, after he awakes, he takes 20 minutes to eat, 40 minutes to shower and dress, and 12 minutes to walk to school. School begins at 8:30, and what is the latest time he can awake to arrive 5 minutes before school begins? How are you answering this question?
Yeah, you have to add the 40 minutes, the 20 minutes, the 12 minutes, and the 5 minutes together to get 77 minutes.
All right.
And when you convert it to hours, you'll get hours and minutes, you'll get 1 hour and 17 minutes.
Okay.
And then you subtract that from 8:30 and you get 7:13.
You get?
7:13.
All right. 7:13?
Yeah.
All right. You said everything takes how long together? 1 hour and 17 minutes or 1 hour and 27 minutes?
1 hour and 17 minutes.
All right. Okay. So that is correct, my friend. That is the correct answer. So thank you so much for your help, all right? Okay. So let's just double check that. Lionel awakes, he takes 20 minutes to eat breakfast, 40 minutes to shower and dress. That's an hour. And then 12 minutes to walk to school. Okay. So we add the 5 minutes that he has to also reach in before school calls, and that will give us 7:13 a.m. All right, so that is correct. Thank you so much, caller. Of course, you could also have just taken away the hour and 12 minutes and then subtracted 5 minutes from that time, which is another way to look at it. You know, we like to give alternate approaches. (7:18), and then we subtract the 5 minutes from that, and we'll also end up with 7:13 as being the latest time that Lionel can awake to get ready for school, all right? So that is it for me today for mathematics. And I have been, Sir Ijaz, and I hope that you rejoin me on Monday as we continue our journey. Ms. Nyla will tell you all about our Edmodo class in some more detail. That is the class code. If you're not already a member, there will be exercises, assignments, quizzes, and so on posted on Saturday based on this week's content. You can also find our videos on our YouTube channel, See Results. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute or two with creative writing. Ms. Nyla will be joining us. It has been a pleasure working with you. Happy studying. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Let me hear you sing. Got to have my V.A.T. Water but so much better. Got to have my V.A.T. Water but so much better.
V.A.T. sparkling flavored water. Water but better.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
Fruta, taste the real Fruta. Enjoy the real Fruta. Refreshing juice of every day. Whoa, Fruta.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening guys and welcome to See Results. So if you're just joining me, we just had mathematics with Sir Ijaz and now you're going to join me for creative writing. Welcome guys, I hope you had a good day at school, you've completed lots of work, you probably made some improvements, whether it's mathematics, ELA or with your creative writing. I do hope so. right? So for creative writing today, as you know, we are on expository style writing, and we are going to be moving forward with this style of writing. Now, what we have been doing, we have actually been looking at, various samples, and then we have been using the rubric to assess them. Right now, so far we have only completed one entire piece, and before that, we looked at the introduction to a report, right? So things that you need, things that you don't need, which I'm going to remind you of shortly, as well as, very importantly, we looked at transitions for report writing. Now, that is one of the first things that we did, because in report writing, as you know, guys, it's really important that you know your transitional words and phrases that are suitable for report writing only, right? So before we get started, I want to say welcome all of you guys. Whether you're joining us on live on C Results on Facebook or the IBN TV 8 page, or watching us on TV on Channel 8 as well, right? So let's jump into it. Now, what I have here, and we already went through this, but for the sake of everyone, I'm going to do it or recap. And also, another reason being, because it doesn't matter how many times you tell students, what to include in a report, or, don't write this or don't use this. When we correct a report, we see the same thing. Now, we're not blaming you. We do understand it's very difficult, to adjust. So parents, I'm not telling you not to be hard on your child. We do want them to do well, but with report writing, it's actually a skill, right? So it's important that you know all the rules to adhere, to follow by, to ensure that you are on the right path with report writing. Hence the reason for constant reminders, with do's and don'ts. Similarly, with narrative style writing, except we know that it's a bit simpler because we have been in practice, and things naturally fall into a story rather than with a report where you actually have to stick to the rules. So with report writing, also known as expository style writing, these are some tips that I want to share with you, right? So when I say be aware of your audience, you have to know, who you are writing to. Remember to keep a formal tone. Sometime in your topic, you ask to write to your principal, maybe your teacher, probably somebody in authority or something like that, right? So you're just keeping that in mind about your audience, right? Use past tense form of verbs. Now, when you say past tense, your entire report must be written in past tense, absolutely no present tense, right? Because with report writing, for it to remain as a formal tone or to maintain that tone, it must be written in the past. And a report is a document, right, of something that has already happened. Hence the reason it's written in past tense. So be very careful. That is very easy and very tricky to fall into using the present tense, right? Some of us tend to put ourselves in that position and start to talk and carry on conversations and so on from there. No, we cannot do that, right? Report writing doesn't allow for present tense, right? Use varied sentence types. We also looked at varied sentence types a couple of times. Also, when we just started report writing, we also recapped on that. So to remind you about, simple sentences, complex and compound sentences, it's necessary throughout your writing, creates a variety, makes it interesting. And also that is one of the key components in the content part of the criteria. So you are going to be marked on that. So be mindful of that, right, guys? Avoid use of the pronouns I and we. Now, this one is a very touchy one. Some teachers, allow it. Some teachers don't. They try to tell you refrain from it. I am one of those. I will tell you to refrain from using the pronouns I and we. Now, I will not say that you are penalized 100% for it in the report writing, so for SCA, but you have to be very careful as the workshops, that we have been to and hearing about, and all the information that has come back from ministry itself, they are telling us to tell students, to refrain from using the pronouns I and we. Now, sometimes I know it's very difficult to do because you are given a topic, and in that topic, you are probably a witness, right, to an incident, and now you have to give an account of what happened, and with you being in this report, right? So later on in the program, I want to show you how to tackle that if you do come across something like that, right? So be very mindful of that. Another reason being, use of the pronouns I and we makes the report, the tone of the report a bit informal, right? It carries on the style of a narrative piece rather than a report piece, right? Next point here, no descriptive language. So when we say no descriptive language, right, I mean no sensory details, as well as use of adjectives and your figurative language, as we tend to use in our narrative piece, right? So be very mindful of that. From the time you start to carry on with use of figurative language and so on, you are falling into the style of narrative descriptive writing, which we are not following here. This is report style writing. Right, so no dialogue, which means that as we usually have in a narrative, right, to help or enhance a character in our writing, we don't have that in report writing. There is no direct speech, so no conversation, which means you cannot have any quotation marks with a dialogue taking place, right? That is incorrect. Now, so far you would realize with our report writing, there is more no's than yes, right? So you have a lot more things that you cannot do than things you can do. Hence the reason why it's a bit more tricky, right, in mastering the skill of report writing. Next point, factual language only, meaning that you cannot give an opinion of what you think took place, probably about an incident, right? So you are not allowed to give your opinion. Stick to the facts, exactly what happened, the truth only, right, about the incident. Transitional words used must be specific to reports, right? So maybe probably a little closer to essay, we can probably recap on those transitional words, right? We tend to forget them, but there was a list that we provided for you. Feel free to use it, guys, and use the ones that your teacher has provided for you as well, right? I'm sure they are quite similar, but be sure to learn that the transitional words specific to report writing, right, as opposed to narrative. And here we have length. Students should not overwrite. Here I'm telling you that you don't need to write 6 paragraphs, right? As I have been saying for the past couple of days for a report, I'm not telling you to limit your writing, right? Exactly. So you don't have to make it 3 paragraphs. You can make it 4, right? Ensure that you have all the details necessary, right? Sometimes when you're given a topic, they ask you for specific things. So specific details about the event, where it took place, you know, from beginning to end and so on. Make sure you capture all of the information that they're asking you for, right? And of course, leaving out irrelevant details. Okay, great, right? So I just wanted to share those important tips with you about creative or narrative style writing before we look at today's expository piece. Now, you must keep in mind all of those tips, because when you are reading the reports here, or any of the sample reports that you have or that your teacher, you know, has presented to you, you will know to the back of your mind, well, this is not allowed, so direct speech is not allowed. I'm not allowed to use figurative language, right? You know, there are certain transitional words to use and to maintain a formal tone. So all of those things, you know, you have in your mind, so when you start writing, right, you will not get carried away, or you will not forget. If it's constantly repeated to you, I'm hoping that it sticks with you, right? That's the idea, right? So as you know, this is what the expository style rubric looks like, just as the narrative. What is different about it? As we did on Tuesday, again, we looked at the different, the criteria. So we looked at content, language use, organization, and grammar mechanics. Now, that is what is different about the 2 styles of writing, so you must know what each of those entail. Right? Feel free to go back and look at those videos, familiarize yourself with what each of the criteria or the criteria requires of you before you get to writing itself. Right? So let's look at today's topic before we go on. Write a report on your class science group project. Include factual information on place and persons involved, details about the project and what other groups did, the results of the project. So again, let's read that topic. Make sure you understand fully what we are looking for. Right? So write a report on your class science group project. Include factual information on place and persons involved, details about the project and what other groups did, the results of the project. So this is what I meant here when I said be sure to include everything that the topic is asking you for. Also, as a hint here, they told you include factual information, right? So yes, you do know that your report is factual. In case you forgot and you are given such a topic, they put a reminder there for you. Now, in your report, we are looking for these things, right? According according to the rubric, everything according to the rubric. Of course, we are looking at that. So content, language use, grammar, mechanics, organization. Of course, that is a must. We are not forgetting that at any given time, regardless of the topic. That is the rubric that we are following, right? That is a checklist, basically, that we are ticking off. So when we are reading your piece, that is what we have side by side, looking to see that you have all of that, as well as this additional pieces here. Now, place and persons involved is also part of content, right? Details about the project and what other groups did. So that will be also content, looking at what happened from beginning to end. So throughout your report, we are looking to see details about the project and the results of the project there, right? So that will fall into your supporting details for your report. Now, let's read this together. On Tuesday, 10th May 2010, the Standard 4 class of Hope Government School completed a class science project. The project was held in the science laboratory from 8:30 in the morning to 12 o'clock at lunchtime. The class teacher, Mrs. Joy Prasad, was in charge of the activity and divided the class into groups of 5. Group A consisted of Amy Simpson, Chelsea Singh, Sean James, Richard Ramlogan, and Joshua Joseph. Now, if this looks familiar to you, that's because when we just started report writing and we were looking at the introductory paragraph to a report, we use this as one of the sample pieces, right? But now we are going to look at the entire report and assess it. So let's go on. Firstly, Mrs. Prasad entered the classroom at 8:30 in the morning and explained that the project was to show where various animals lived at their different habitats. The categories given were fresh water, salt water, and land. Next, Mrs. Prasad selected the group members and asked one person from each group to pick a piece of paper out of a small plastic bag that had a category on it. Also, it contained instructions for the project. After this process was completed, Group A received the category for land habitats. Furthermore, Mrs. Prasad informed the groups of the various ways to present. However, the presentations would occur at 8:30 to lunchtime in the science laboratory. When Mrs. Prasad left, all students separated in their groups. The students discussed the project and ideas for the presentation. Then, Group A decided to create a 3-dimensional model. To do this, the first step was to find the animals that lived on land, such as wild buffalo, snakes, and monkeys. These pictures were stuck onto cardboard, and a tripod was created with the same material to be used as a base. As the final point of the project, a background was created with other natural materials, such as twigs, grass, leaves, and stones, which each member gathered from the schoolyard to create a realistic background. A small light bulb was placed at the top of the box to illuminate the project and for presentation. Finally, the time for the presentations arrived and all the groups prepared their projects and speeches. Each group acquired approximately 20-25 minutes to present. Firstly, Group B, who received the category of freshwater, showed their project. They had made a poster on the animals that lived there and gave a brief explanation on their category. Secondly, Group C, who obtained the category of saltwater, showed their collage of the ocean. That group gave a lengthy explanation of their project. Finally, it was Group A's time to present. Then Amy started the presentation by reading the introduction. After Chelsea placed the 3-dimensional model onto a spinning surface for the other classmates to receive an entire view of the model, during the presentation, Amy presented while Richard and Sean gestured to the places where she mentioned. When they were finished, the teacher guided all presentations. Later, the groups were marked according to their level of creativity, the way they spoke, and the level of neatness and effort put into the project. Group A was declared the only group who were awarded all marks of 25 out of 25. Okay, great. Right, so that was your entire report there based on a science project. Now, after reading that report there, now what are your initial thoughts? Right, did anything stand out to you specifically? And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about it. And it's time for Maghrib, so we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the science project report that we just read. Stay with us, guys. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum, good evening guys, and welcome back to C Results. I'm Miss Nyla, and you're just joining me for expository style writing. I must say welcome to all of our viewers, whether it's on TV, channel 8, or via our C Results page on Facebook or the IBN TV 8 page. Right, so welcome guys, and I hope you are benefiting from, you know, all these pieces, sample pieces that we are looking at while using the rubric to assess them. Right now, it's really beneficial. I do advise that you know, take heed, look at the simple errors, be mindful of the tips shared, you know, the do's and the don'ts, right? All of this is going to improve your writing one way or the other, right? So just be mindful of it. So just before the break, we read the report on a science project, right? And now what we're going to do, we're going to use the rubric to assess that piece. Now, of course, you can do your own assessment, and some of you probably you know, was doing that all along while we were reading, right? Certain things probably would have stood out to you, probably spelling errors, capitalization, maybe even punctuation, subject-verb agreement, any of those things, right? So if that did stand out to you, then you're on the right path, and you do have a good eye, right? And I trust that, you know, it's even for your own work. Now, we are on the first part of the rubric here, which is actually content. Now, everything under descriptors and score is what we are looking for when we are talking about content, right? So in content, we must talk about or look for the relevant main ideas and supporting details. Remember, at the beginning when the topic was given, there were certain things that the report specifically asked for, right? So we must be mindful of that as well when we are marking. Secondly, what happened from beginning to end, so from your introduction body and your conclusion, right, throughout your entire report, we must know everything that took place with the science project, right, with the relevant supporting details. Persons involved, first name and surname, right, so using first name and surname, really important. Like I mentioned, once you are introducing somebody for the first time, you introduce them using their first name and their surname. If you are speaking about them a second time in your report, you can refer to them using their first name only or their last name only. If it's even in your second or third paragraph and you are now introducing somebody for the first time, you must still introduce them using their first name and their surname. That's really important, okay? Right? Location, date, and time. All of that is what we are looking for here, right? So the report comments. The report contains all relevant details of the science project. Now, if we go back to the beginning of the report here, we will see date. Date is given, right? Place is given here at the school in the science laboratory. So we have date, place, and as well as time, 8:30 in the morning to 12 o'clock at lunchtime, right? So all of that was given. Now, if we are paying attention to names, the persons involved, right? So we have names given here. Notice the teacher's name was given Mrs. Joy Prasad, first name and last name, right? So good going there. And then you have the introduction of Group A. We have Amy Simpson, first name and last name, Chelsea Singh, Sean James, Richard Ramlogan, Joshua, Joseph. So great job there achieving what was necessary in the content part of the criteria, hence the reason for getting that full 5 marks there. Everything was included, properly done, right? So once you have given us, you know, the main ideas, and we can tell, you know, what was happening throughout the entire report, right? Sufficient details were given, as well as, so what happened from beginning to end, basically, the persons involved, you must mention their first name and their last name, right? If you don't, you may be penalized. I can't say for sure on the day of SEA, right? But I am just advising you, please be mindful of that, right? Location, date, and time. Of course, those are essential parts of your report, right? So all is well. 5 points awarded there in the first part of the rubric. Next, we have language use, right? So in language use, these are the descriptors we are looking at. These are what we are focusing on. Exclusive use of factual language. We explained what factual language was, right? So everything must be true. No opinions must be given. Exclusive use of formal language. So we're looking at the tone of a report. What also helps, knowing what is formal and informal language, right? knowing how to make informal language formal. Of course, that will not be a requirement for your report, but just in case you made that error and it was informal, you know how to fix that. If you don't, go back to our previous video, not the last one that we completed, probably about 2 episodes ago, where we looked at the descriptors in our rubric, right? And we touched on formal and informal language, right? As well as factual language was there for you, and varied sentence types. Now, varied sentence types, that's simple. We're just pointing out the different types of sentences present in your report, right? So the report uses a formal and factual tone consistently throughout the report. I don't know how many of you agree here, but the report did stick to a formal tone, right? No style of, or no hint of narrative format of a story, use of pronouns, nothing like that, okay? So we were on track there. Similarly, with the formal language, so the formal and factual tone goes hand in hand, right? Closely related there. And we are not going to look at the varied sentence types, as we do know what are, you know, the different types of sentences, which we have been doing probably since earlier days, right? So at the junior level. So I am sure that you can identify what is a simple sentence or a complex sentence, right? You just be sure to use a variety of sentences in your report. Now, that is not so difficult to do. I think that falls naturally with most of us when we are writing. We give a variety of sentences, right? So this child also was able to get an entire 5 marks, full 5 marks again in this part of the rubric. So language use, very well done, and full 5 marks there, right? So great job. Next, we have organization. Organization is all about, you know, having clearly defined introduction, body, and conclusion. So I must be able to tell where introduction is, your body, and the conclusion of your report, right? So in your introduction, there's certain things that we look for, right? And we discussed those just as we started report writing. And then your body and your conclusion. Now, what is also important here, right? All ideas, paragraphs, details are logically sequenced. Your ideas must flow, it must be coherent. I must be able to follow what you are writing, right? So I must not be confused, well, who is this person just being introduced and why is he here? Or how come this happened, but you didn't conclude about it to the end of your report, right? So tie all your ideas together, make sure it is completed nicely, right? Skillful use of transitional words and phrases to link ideas, right? So as you are seeing here, transitional words play an important part in gaining all marks necessary for organization. The total marks that you can possibly get in organization is actually 5 marks, similarly with each aspect of the criteria, right? So that's 5 marks, each for the 4 different criteria, so which gives us a total of 20 marks, right? What I did not mention here with your paragraphs, you must indent, right? So if you fail to indent, then we are not going to be exactly sure where your paragraph starts, right? And we are not going to count lines, probably not going to look for a new idea to tell, well, okay, the paragraph should have started here. You are simply going to lose marks for not indenting and for us not being able to tell, you know, or clearly distinct whether this is the introduction going into the body or the body going into the conclusion, right? So if it's too much information, then given in the same paragraph, right? And it should have been split into 2 paragraphs instead. All right, so let's look at the comments here for the organization of this report. Generally, information for the introduction, body, and conclusion is presented in a logical order, right? So we were able to follow the science project, right? We were not confused by what they had to do and how they had to do it. The main ideas and supporting details are structured within paragraphs, and all ideas are clearly sequenced, right? Similarly, what I just said there, quite easy to follow. Transitional words link most ideas, right? So furthermore, in line 14 and however, so both of these are transitional words, in line 15 are used incorrectly, right? Finally, in the last line, could be replaced with another transitional word. Now, if you look here, and I highlighted the transitional word for you here where they said it was used incorrectly. Group A received the category for land habitats. Okay, in fact, let's just go back a couple sentences up so we'll understand the idea better, right? So we can probably read from the categories given with fresh water, salt water, and land. Next, Mrs. Mrs. Passat selected the group members and asked one person from each group to pick a piece of paper out of a small plastic bag that had a category on it. Also, it contained instructions for the project. After this process was completed, Group A received the category for land habitats. Furthermore, Mrs. Passat informed the groups of the various ways to present. Now remember, when you're saying furthermore, that is given additional information. Right? Now they're saying here, this is additional information about what Mrs. Passat informed. Right? In fact, here, and if you read the line before, it says also it contained instructions for the project. Right? So it should have added information about the project, not the line, but your transitional word. So just be mindful when you are using your transitions, use them suitably, right? And make sure you know which ones tell us, the transitions of time, transitions for added information, something to contrast. If any of those, right, they had about 7 different types of transitional words that we looked at. So familiarize yourself with them, right? So if you want to clarify something, there are even transitional words for that, right? So be mindful of the different types of transitional words. It's one thing to use them, but then when you use them incorrectly, that's also another problem, right? So organization, this child was given 4 marks. Just a couple of errors here, right? So maybe that is why the 1 mark was deducted. Right. And lastly, in the rubric, we're looking at grammar and mechanics. Right now, you know grammar mechanics is all about capitalization, use of parts of speech, punctuation, spelling. Right? So all of this ties in nicely with your Section 1 ELA paper. So once you have mastered that Section 1 in your ELA paper, then you are fine. You have no problems getting a full 5 marks in your narrative or in your report style writing for your grammar mechanics, because in both styles of writing, the descriptors and the score for grammar mechanics is actually the same, right? So they focus on capitalization, use of parts of speech, your punctuation, and spelling, right? So be careful with that and make sure you master that Section 1 paper. So comments here. Capitalization issues were noted within the report. So for example, on the line 1, standard 4, right? You could have capitalized standard, actually, the letter F there. Now, if you don't, that's also not a problem. So you could have had it in common, right? Some people put it in common, so standard 4. So S in common and 4 in common, which is also fine. But this here is a sample directly from the ministry here, right? And they are saying that they wanted that in capitalized letters. So capital letters. So, just be mindful of that. And line 2, science project, right? Science is a, science must be a capital S there, right? And in line 38 to 39, there's an error in subject-verb agreement, the only group, right? Who were awarded, right? The only group here, they're speaking about 1. So we covered all of those rules there with subject-verb agreement early on in ELA. Right? The reason that we did them so early on is because when we get to this point of narrative and report style writing, we don't have problems. Now, we still do sometimes, but when after your second read, so when you're checking over your work and you come to this point and you come across the only group, right, or whatever is the line, right, and requires subject-verb agreement, you know what rule to use. Right? A comma splice is evident in lines 14 to 15. Furthermore, Mrs. Passat informed the groups of the various ways to present. However, the presentations would occur at 8:30. Right? We don't need a comma there. So a comma splice is where you insert a comma that is not needed. Right? So also, again, rules of punctuation. Right? So due to these, errors here, 1 mark was lost there, right? So we had 5 in content, we had 5 in language use, so that's 10. We had 4 in organization, 14, and we have 4 here as well. So that's 18 out of 20 marks, so not bad, right? So pretty good job there. But our aim is to get the most amount of marks. And how can we do that? Simply have to live by this rubric now until SCA, guys, basically, right? For both narrative and report style writing. What you can do when you are writing your you know, you are given assignments and it's a narrative or a report style writing, get your rubric. If you don't have a copy, we have provided the rubric here for you when we touched on narrative and when we started report. So both rubrics are there for you. So, you know, you have access to them. Follow them closely with your writing. So after you have written your entire essay, mark yourself or get an adult to mark you, right? If you think that, you know, you might be a little biased towards your work, right? So, you know, practice that and that may even help you. So that has, you know, brought us to the end of this report. We are not going to move on to another report today. We may not have time to finish that, but I actually want to share with you. Just give me 1 second there. We do have a lot of work for you here, right? So I'm going to share with you a couple pieces, you know, from the assignment that you all had on Edmodo to do, right? I'm going to read the scenario for you shortly. On Tuesday, Saija shared a few pieces, but as you know, his time with us on a Tuesday is limited, and we often have a lot of work that we would like to you know, share with you guys, because we have so many students on the Edmodo class, which we welcome, and we encourage a lot more students, you know, to participate, submit your pieces, get that feedback, that one-on-one feedback, right? So submit, guys, right? That's basically what I want to tell you. Take part in the Edmodo class. You know, you will have a chance for your work to be showcased here, you know, whether it's scoring a maximum of 10 marks or even 5 marks, whatever it is. Remember, there's always room for improvement, and this is a learning opportunity, right, for both you and me, right? So don't feel any way about having your work on the show. If it's not a full 10, that's okay. That's why we are here. We want to help you, and we want you to improve. Use this as motivation, right? So if you're not part of the class, use this as motivation to become part of the class, so probably have this opportunity, and of course, to improve in your work, right? So the scenario for this assignment was, you were with your father standing in line to pay for your groceries at a popular supermarket. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off. Everyone looked around nervously. Write a story describing what happened and how the situation ended, right? So for this week, you are required to write only the second paragraph. Hint, focus on rise in action. Remember to continue from where you left off. So this assignment was actually going on for a couple weeks because we had just completed narrative style of writing, and we moved on to report style writing. And we didn't have a chance, you know, to get you to actually write an entire essay. Throughout our assignments on the Edmodo class, what we were doing, we were giving you paragraphs, you know, based on each aspect of narrative writing. So, for example, character or setting, right, rise in action, and all of those things, you had to write as individual paragraphs or standalone paragraphs. So at the end, we decided that, you know what, we would like to, you know, test your knowledge based on what we have taught you, and this is the opportunity here. So while we are teaching report style writing, you are also being reminded of your narrative pieces, right? So you wouldn't forget that, you know, while you're learning about this. So this assignment had to focus on the rise in action, right? So this was only paragraph 2. We already read the introductory paragraphs on a previous episode. So now we are looking at rise in action, right? So let's look at this piece here. So of course, this is continuing from the last paragraph that this child wrote. People inside looked around with a look of fear and confusion on their faces. I held on to father so tightly that I felt as though I could suffocate him. The alarm was loud enough to burst someone's eardrums and make them permanently hearing impaired. Soon we began to smell smoke, and then the lights went out. I was extremely terrified and immediately began crying. The room was pitch black. The room was pitch black. I believe this was supposed to be black, like when your eyes are closed. It was all darkness until I saw a blazing fire in the bakery. Screams overthrew the sound of the fire alarm, but no one could see the exit. My father looked at me with an emotion I never thought I'd see. He was scared. If my father is scared, then you should be scared for your life, because my father always found ways out of any situation, but he had no idea what to do, right? So this was written by Antonia Graham, right? So this work, pretty good job on the second paragraph here. We get the idea of the climax, right, leading up to what is about to happen, or probably what he's about to see there, right? So the first line here, people inside looked around with a look of fear, right? So remember what we always try to encourage you to do. So if you're going to use, you know, the same word twice in the same line, also, although it is used differently, right? We know that there are synonyms, there are other choices. You can probably use a piece of figurative language to make it a bit different, right? Just to create or to give, you know, a little bit of interest there, to pique our interest then, right? We don't want to read the same thing twice or 3 times throughout your story, right? So just be mindful of that. That's one little piece of criticism there, right? And I believe this was a typo and not a spelling error, the word black, right? So pretty good, and we are looking forward to that next paragraph, right? So keep up the good work, Antonia. Right, this one here, I'm going to read a few. I don't know how well you can see it, right? Everyone began to panic. Only then I realized what was going on. The fire alarm just went off as everyone began to panic and run out the door as my father held my hand to go out the door. Someone bumped into me. I fell and lost my father in the accident. When I was getting up, I saw a child with a matchbox, right? So this could have been a great paragraph. A little bit of repetition going on there, right? So everyone began to panic. Only then did I realize what was going on. The fire alarm just went off, right? And everyone began to panic again, right? So we're seeing repetition there. And then they ran out the door, and she was holding her father's hand, and then somebody bumped into her, and she fell and she lost her father. So a little bit of repetition going on. And when we read something like this, right, the attention of the reader cuts a bit, right? So you're not that interested. Now, I'm not saying that to say that the person is not going to mark your piece, but remember, when you are writing, it's creative writing, right? So put some creation into it, right? Some, you know, original ideas, something authentic to help your story really come alive, right? So here you could have had a little bit of dialogue going on, right? A little bit of sensory detail, probably a little more description to make this setting come alive for us to understand what is happening a bit better. Right, so keep up the work, and you know, all efforts are appreciated. Next piece. When we heard the loud alarm, everyone started to run out of the aisles. Hurry, said Dad. Everyone quickly got out of the grocery store. Then when all hope seemed to be lost, we heard a loud wailing sound. It was the fire department. Everyone stay calm, said the chief. Everyone stayed in the parking lot to watch to the red flames and black smoke disappear. The news van filled with reporters quickly came to the scene. How did you think this happened? Asked the reporter. Right, so that there was actually the entire paragraph. Right, so we have a little bit of errors and sentence construction error going on there. Right, so here, everyone stay calm, said the chief. Everyone stayed in the parking lot to watch to the red flames and black smoke disappear, right? I'm not sure if it is because the child was typing quickly, right? But remember to look at your sentence construction. That is really important. So you could say the same thing, you know, if you want to express the same views, just remember, read over your sentence, make sure that it makes sense, right? Something like this, an easy slip like that, you write that in your essay paper, you don't have time to check over, and then what? Right? And they're going to be a little bit confused because when there are errors within a sentence, you have to take your time to read and to understand, right? You have to put that extra effort to understand what the child is saying to make sense of the story, right? So here we notice that there's a capital Q for the word quickly, which does not require a capital letter. And also to the end here, how did you think this happened? Asked the reporter. Now, the paragraph ends a bit abruptly. Probably a little bit of information, a little more details would have rounded this paragraph nicely, right? So remember, guys, an important tip, always remember to reread what you have read. That's going to help you. Next, first, my father and I entered the cream-colored grocery. That was a deafening sound of chatter in every nook. There was a deafening sound of chatter in every nook and cranny of the enormous building as my dad took his silver metallic trolley and headed through the aisles. Remember, my dad started, take only what we need. Okay, Dad, I replied, shaking my head. We used our hawk eyes to scan the millions of shelves around to get the items we needed and to avoid impulse shopping. Finally, when we got all of our groceries, we rushed to the express lane as swift as Usain Bolt to pay for our goods. Now, previously, Ishan would have wrote about getting up and preparing to go to the grocery with his father, right? So that was a nice, well-written paragraph, right? Telling us about, you know, what is happening outside and describing that atmosphere. But then in the second paragraph here now, right, is a bit dragging, right? So we're not able to get to the point as yet. By the second paragraph, you should be getting to the, or at least, you know, getting to the climax of the story, right? So here it's a bit of irrelevant details given. If you read the first paragraph and the second paragraph together with this, right, a bit too much of extra details. So Ishan, as well as everyone else, right, who tend to go on along this path, remember, take away the irrelevant details, and that is going to make your story a lot more interesting, right? Stay away from things that you don't need to add to your story, right? I just want to point out here, while quotation marks were used correctly here, just remember, here should be a capital T, right? And yeah, that's it. So I believe that was probably just a typo, maybe, right? So Ishan, we do look forward to your next paragraph. Add a little more, not add, take away a little or some details, and we would have had a great paragraph there, right? But good work, keep at it, right? Interesting ideas. Let's see if we can read another one. So as we exited the oversized building, there were lots of people looking on in terror. The grocery's worst enemy was the fire. Was the sound that emanated my mouth. You know, like when you're really stressed and you're given that sound, right? Black ashes then filled the atmosphere. A smoky stench then prevailed. The fire started to spread onto other buildings. I erupted into hot tears as I saw the fire was passed on to my favorite cookie factory, Delights. The manager was so depressed that he looked at his attractive grocery. Everyone then heard the deafening sound of the siren blocks away. It sounded like a baby who just woke up from a long sleep, right? So that last line there, a bit funny to me, right? Right. So I like a little humor in your writing, so I like that, right? Overall, good paragraph. What you could have added here, a little more details, description about the setting. So give us a little more about the fire. Right, so I saw the fire passed. Now tell us about the fire. How did it look, right? Were there sounds of eruption? Probably you saw something. Probably somebody was caught in a building. You know, create some interest for us, right? That we want to keep on reading, right? So Miriam, good job overall. But just remember that you can add one or two additional pieces of information or details there to make it a lot more interesting, right? I'm almost out of time, but I do have another one that I would like to share with you. Not all of the time that we get this extra time to share students' work, right? And we really do enjoy sharing your work with everyone because we know you put in a lot of effort into this and you are the guys, you know, you're willing to learn and we want to help you. When my father and I went inside, we shopped for our goods and my father brought tools for himself. When we finished shopping, we went in line and waited for our turn. A few minutes later, the fire alarm went off and we all panicked. The cashier told us not to worry, but none of us could see the fire. The cashier went downstairs and saw it. Some people were burned to a crisp. The ambulance and the fire department was called over. We luckily got away, right? So this paragraph, Zion, could have been a little more interesting, right? Now, good effort, but here it ended a bit abruptly, right? So you just got away, but you could have shared a little more details about the persons downstairs before, you know, probably burned to crisp, maybe, right? Or you probably witnessed that, and you could have shared, you know, how that looked, probably graphic, a little bit of imagery could have been brought in there, right? Aside from that, a couple spelling errors. I'm not going to point them out, but there are a couple spelling errors, right? Spelling is key. That's part of grammar mechanics. And remember, guys, that's an entire 5 marks for that entire section with spelling and punctuation and so on. So revisit those rules and, you know, familiarize yourself with it. Right, let's see if okay, great. So that's all the pieces that we had, right? Now I just want to remind you about the IBN TV and San Juan Muslim Ladies Organization essay writing competition, right? It is, you know, the title of the essay is Why I Love to Fast in Ramadan, right? So it's open to boys and girls 12 and under. It's due on Friday, the 10th of April, reminding that's after the essay exam. So you do have some extra time, right, to showcase your skills. It must be handwritten and addressed to this, this address here, handwritten, right? So be very mindful of that. It cannot be typed, right, guys? So make sure that you write it and not your parents, and also that you came up with the ideas for the essay, right? There are lots of interesting prizes, cash prizes to be exact, right? So the first place will be given $5,000, second place $3,000, and third place $2,000. Right, so, you know, become a part of it, you know, try out your skills. You might be very lucky, you might even win first place, right? So encourage your friends, encourage your family members once they are of the age limit, age category, right? And of course, you yourself take part in this competition. I must remind you guys about Edmodo, right? That is our educational group where we post quizzes for you weekly on mathematics, ELA, and creative writing, right? So currently this week there are assignments up for you which will be due by tomorrow, 11:59. Make sure and submit your pieces. Now the class code is at the bottom of the screen there for you. If you want to become part of the class, you must enter that class code there. So whether it's a parent or a student, the instructions are simple for registering. Just visit edmodo.com. Follow the few steps and you will quickly become a member of our Edmodo class once you enter that class code, right? Quizzes are only open to students, right? So parents, what you are allowed to do is monitor your child's progress and motivate them basically, right? These videos are available for you to rewatch. You know, probably when you watch them the first time, you don't get all the information, right? You don't internalize it as well as you do if you watch the second or third time. So we are encouraging you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, See Results, right, where we have all the videos, you know, labeled for you, right, according to whatever content we covered for that day. So it will be very simple for you to find. They are also available on our See Results page on Facebook. And remember, we have shows every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, the show is repeated, right, or shown again, respectively. So on a Friday, we'll show a Monday show, on a Saturday, we'll show a Tuesday, and on a Sunday, there will be the Thursday show, right? So there are many avenues in which you can explore if you would like to rewatch these videos, right? And we do encourage you to invite your family and your friends to become part of not only our class, but to become part of this community with See Results to See Results. Okay, guys, so that's about it. That's a wrap for this week. We will see you again on Monday. Rejoin us for mathematics and ELA, where we have more interesting questions with Sir Jazz and lots more to cover in poetry, right? So make sure and join us. Do have an enjoyable weekend, and we look forward to seeing you guys. It has been a pleasure being in your company for the last hour, and I do wish you a great weekend. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, guys.